So this video is about just one Lego piece. In fact, it's not even a Lego piece. It is a piece that Lego has desperately needed for the last 10 years or more. And honestly, it wouldn't only operate as a great bit of fan service for classic Bionicle collectors, even G2 Bionicle collectors, Hero Factory, etc., but also would even be useful today. In fact, probably more so, given that it is applicable to the SCCBS system. The piece I'm talking about is a bootleg piece from AliExpress, which I was turned on to by OSSO here on YouTube. So shout out to them. I will be linking their channel in the description, and I'll also be linking where you can find this yourself, because the piece is something I've been asked about a lot. It is this right here, the Mixel toe ball with a one length axle. And honestly, Lego could use a whole family of parts like this. But before we get into that, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, it really does help. We're nearing 2,000. Let's go ahead and talk about this piece right here. I love this piece. I was able to get 20 of them on AliExpress. Normally they're $2, but as like a first time purchase, they give it to me for $1 with free shipping. I'm not going to say no to that. 20 of these pieces, they're incredibly useful, and I use them on a lot of different builds, whether it is the build for my ultra posable Taraga, which I have featured in a handful of videos in the past, but to give these guys their more posable arms, my ultra posable Matoran as well, to actually allow the head to move around, which is always nice, right? Even, of course, the obvious Toa Metru, shoulders, arms, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, I'm having a little fun here with Nuju experimenting with colors, having a lot of fun and incredibly enjoying that. But also, and I think most importantly, it works well with the Toa Mata. That is so much more expressive. Now, granted, this is what sits on my computer sort of in display here. No, that is not a real brown Komau. That is one I resin cast. No big deal here, but it's such a useful piece. Not only am I able to use it here to, of course, give the neck articulation with a fairly simple change in the neck's structure, but also to even give it thumbs, something I have not seen other people do. Yes, I figured out how to do this a handful of years ago, and many people have also followed suit as well, but the thumbs are fun. They're new, they're exciting, they're different, and I love it. It's a very simple concept, and it works well here. It fits in with the aesthetic of the character, and it is incredibly useful. If you want to see something further on this character without talking about this piece for just a minute, something else I also discovered is attaching a rubber band on the back of this gear, which will kind of hold it in specific places in space, which is always nice. But that's not what this video is about. So why is this piece useful, outside of what you've just seen? I've seen a lot of people who have wanted a version of this with a 2-length axle instead, so that it can go down inside of the Metru body and attach to the gear inside, which, fair enough, and I think Lego could use that piece as well. But I do think that the 1-length axle is far more useful, because you can reverse rolls and use a toe ball in that gear instead, sort of. I'll talk about why that sort of doesn't work here in a handful of minutes, but the reason that this piece is so useful is the fact that it can be used across systems, right? Not only does this work for getting really strange angles with system builds, everybody loves those large $100+ creator, 3-in-1 city builds, right? Where you get like a building that, anyway, I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, but you know kind of what I'm talking about. And a lot of those use some really incredible techniques to achieve fantastic angles. This piece could allow for something like that as well. So it's incredibly useful, not just in system, but so many other places. When I think about this piece, outside of its uses for Bionicle, I think of Technic first, because that's just probably the closest thing to Bionicle that we have, right? And to me, Technic, the reason that this works so well is it can be used to achieve really interesting angles. If you want the fenders of a supercar to angle outward, this is something that you could use. If you want the A-frame or the beams, A-pillars, whatever, around the windshield to actually sit in certain directions, this piece is useful there as well. If you want to have an adjustable spoiler on the back there, whatever the case, right? This piece is so incredibly useful for a lot of that stuff. And certainly there's more here that I haven't accounted for. When I say a family of pieces like this, I'm talking about a piece with an axle, a piece with a pin, a piece with a 2-length axle, maybe a piece even with a pinhole coming out of here, or an axle hole coming out of the back side as well, right? So there's a lot here. It's its own system waiting to be developed. And as LEGO spends more time and resources on SCCBS, one of the major issues I have with SCCBS, even though I do think it is better overall than standard CCBS in terms of its name, creature and character building system, is the fact that SCCBS relies on system, something that's already established and is constantly being developed elsewhere, right? So it makes sense to have a system that uses that. This piece, however, only adds to that because this addresses the bones of that system, not the system pieces themselves. That's not to say you couldn't have versions of this with studs. We do. That's the point. So we have a system like this that works well with studs, with anti-studs, but nothing for Technic, and that's sad. Why is that? Now, I don't know if LEGO has any specific reasons as to why they don't develop these pieces. I've heard a lot of people talk about how they have to use dark gray or light gray for these parts because of tolerances with LEGO colors, which I completely understand. But if other companies are able to do it, LEGO should be. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean that pieces like this are designed to hold up forever. And again, I personally, on a piece like this, am willing to sacrifice that width a little bit, make it a little bit wider to make it stronger, or develop it in a different way. It is such a good piece, and it's a piece that I think it has no limits, really, or at least I haven't found them yet. I think that's the important part here. There are other places where I could see something like this being useful. And again, when I talk about the Toa Metru and their shoulders and how those could work, there are some kind of finicky things you can do with it as well. I've gotten this to work on a Toa Metru, but I don't enjoy doing it because it does require putting pieces in ways they're not designed to. It does work, but it's difficult, to say the least. Still, though, it leaves so much room on the table for inspiration, for new and exciting builds. It is its own system waiting to be developed, and I hope that there is some day in the future where LEGO starts to develop it, because I imagine these pieces haven't gone under their radar, right? I think that there's just something that is holding them back from making it. Maybe it has something to do with their philosophy of, like, not putting studs on two sides of things with very rare exceptions, or, something along those lines, right? Sort of these rules to building, if you will. But I don't think that this in and of itself breaks those rules. Anyway, I could talk about this piece all day. It is honestly an incredible piece, but you guys probably want to know where you can get it. So definitely check out the links in the description. And again, huge shout out, huge thanks to OSSO for their YouTube channel having turned me on to this piece. I would not have known it existed. Granted, I was using 3D printed versions of this before I knew that there was one of these available. There are versions of this piece with a pin available on, I believe, like Go Bricks or We Bricks or one of those things, right? But I had not seen one with an axle yet, so I'm very glad that that is a thing now. It is something I can go and buy more of in the future because I know I need more. 20 of them is a lot, but they go by fast. I would rather have 100 or 1,000. They are great pieces. So if you want to check that out, if you want to check out the Discord, Instagram, or Patreon, all of which are in the description, if you want to support the channel, get some perks. And of course, you can also join the conversation in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.